Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. I wanted to take a few minutes today and talk about my experiences from full self-driving from 11.4.7 that I tested about 8 months ago to 12.3.6 that I most recently just tested in my Tesla Model 3 Performance. So let's unpack, let's talk about it, and let's dive in and see what I think. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode. Like I was saying, we are going to be talking about my opinion on full self-driving and my most recent experience with that in my Tesla Model 3 Performance here. Now, 12.3.6 was the one that I was able to test on my vehicle when I had my 30-day free trial of full self-driving. Now, before I trigger any full self-driving enthusiasts in the comments below, just keep in mind that the positivity that I see from just 8 months ago from my last experience to now is significant. It is an amazing increase in, functionality, in its confidence, in everything that it does is just astounding and different. And so this is really going to be a positive talk about it, but it's not without its demerits. I think it does have some issues that we need to discuss and talk about, and so we're going to kind of do that today. And so I want to take a few minutes to kind of discuss my differences that I saw between 11.4.7 that I tested about 8 months ago and 12.3.6 that I most recently just tested. And if you're interested in seeing any of these videos that I did, you can take a look down in the description, and I might even throw them up in the corner up here. But anyway, I wanted to kind of start with my experience from 11.4.7 that I tested about 8 months ago. I borrowed my friend's Model Y for a couple of hours, got to experience full self-driving for my first time in his Model Y. And it was a pretty impressive thing to see a car driving itself for the most part. Just by telling it where you want to go, and it pretty much figured out what to do. Now, there were a lot of parts where it was sometimes a bit scary, it was sometimes a bit confused as to what to do, it even made some mistakes, and some mistakes that could have been potentially dangerous situations for the occupants of the vehicle, myself, along with whoever else had in the car. And so 11.4.7 showed some promise. Now, a lot of people that you might watch on YouTube who do these full self-driving videos all the time are seeing the incremental updates, and they're talking about what's changed between, dot 3 versus dot 4, and, what the big differences are between those, or the small differences between those, and, what they experience. My experience is more going to be on this very large gap of 8 months from when I did 11.4.7 all the way to 12.3.6, and that is what my experience is going to be compared to, is that long ago to basically the most recent one, even though 12.4 is starting to roll out right now. But I wanted to kind of discuss what I think is pretty impressive about this. So 12.3.6 was talked up quite a bit, and version 12 was talked up quite a bit because a lot of people were saying, version 12 is pretty much going to be the one that can drive itself for the most part. And even though I didn't get to experience version 12 when it first came out, I got to experience 12.3.6, and I have to say that the improvements from 11.4 from when I initially tried it is pretty impressive. And so it was pretty impressive to see the differences, the confidence, the extra abilities for it to, read certain situations and just adapt to it, and, obviously be aggressive in certain situations, but not in others, kind of knowing how a human would react into that particular situation. So really impressed overall. So over the course of that 8 months, they have significantly increased what I believe is what everybody thought was very much impossible. A lot of people thought that vision-based full self-driving is impossible, and I can confidently say at this point that I think it could be very well possible. And a couple of the comparisons I hear, well, if you don't use LiDAR, if you don't have a radar system, you can't look through certain weather, fog or heavy rain or anything like that. And the retort that I've seen is, well, humans, we use our eyes to drive. We don't have radar and LiDAR and all this fancy stuff. And the cameras on these vehicles are very much capable of seeing through certain spectrums that we as humans cannot see anyway. So these cameras probably do have a better idea of what's actually in front of us, on top of the fact that it's doing a 360-degree coverage of the vehicle. Let me apologize. I know these birds are chirping their heads off back there, so if you could hear that through the microphone, I'm sorry. But they're just happy today. It's a beautiful day outside. Look at this. It's beautiful here in Myrtle Beach. But let's get back to the full self-driving. So once again, extremely impressive how well 12.3.6 was. I used it for pretty much almost every day for the 30-day trial that I had. And even though it wasn't perfect, we did have some weird issues every once in a while. There were things that I kind of wish it did differently. And that's kind of the point I want to bring up too, is a lot of times when people say, well, the car made a mistake, it did this instead of this. And I've noticed that there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, the car screwed up, it did this, I would have done it this way. And when I think back at some of those moments where I'm like, the car made a mistake, I'm like, no, the car didn't make a mistake. The car made a decision, right? We all have to make decisions while we're driving. We all have to try to comprehend a situation before we get to it, or at least we hope we can before we get to a situation. And we have to make a decision. And we always have those decisions where it's like, you're sitting on the highway and there's a lot of traffic and you're like, oh, I should probably get into maybe the left lane will be best. No, the middle lane's moving more. Or maybe I should stay in the right lane and maybe that will move better. And you always have to decide what you want to decide, right? You want to go in the left lane because maybe that'll move the middle lane, the right lane, and you have to decide. And sometimes your decision is not always correct. And I see that with full self-driving where it might be like, okay, I have 1.5 miles till I need to get off this exit. I have, X amount of cars in front of me. Can I get around this particular car and then get back over in time? Will my maximum speed set be able to overcome the traffic that's in front of me? How will I know that the traffic will not slow down in front of me that's going to stop me from being able to get back into the right lane? There's so many calculations that the car is trying to do just like a human would, but it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever decision it makes is wrong. It just means that it's different than what you would have done, or at least especially me. So there has been a few times where I've watched the car make a decision that was ultimately wrong. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's not something that another human being would have done. For instance, at one point on 12.3.6, we were coming up to what was an entrance to where we needed to stop. And about 1/4 mile before is a right turn lane into a separate entrance, a separate place. And it started moving into that turn lane with its turn signal, and then it realized, oh, no, that is incorrect. I need to get back over into the moving lane so I can get down the road just another, 800 or 900 feet, so then I can make the right into this parking lot. So it looked at a situation, it tried to comprehend what it needed to do. It made a mistake, but also at the same time, I can see a ton of people who will make that same mistake, right? If you're listening to your navigation and it says make a right turn in 500 or 600 feet, it's hard to comprehend what 500 or 600 feet is while you're driving. You get better at it the more you use navigation and the more that you rely on it, so you could kind of comprehend what 1,000 feet is or how long it takes for you to do that. But most people, if they're not used to navigation telling them, turn in this amount of distance, they can make the wrong decision and get into a lane too early and then realize, oh crap, I need to get back over again, or, it really all depends. And so I thought this was really unique to see the car reacting in real time and not necessarily relying just on maps or, previous lane data that it may have picked up at some point. It literally took real time information and said, I think I have to get over now. Oh no, wait, let me slide back in and because it was safe too, because the car knew that there was nobody behind us or nobody to our left, I'm going to just sneak back in and go down the road an extra 500 or 600 feet to make the right into the parking lot. And I think this is really interesting, and I think this is really cool, where we're starting to see the cars react similar to humans in a way, Maybe not perfect, but neither are we, especially with driving, which is why we have accidents, unfortunately, where, people can be injured or worse. And with full self-driving cars, I think those accidents will be a lot less than they are right now. And for one reason is that the more full self-driving cars you have on the road, the more they'll understand what each one will do in a particular situation and be able to react accordingly. And so I think that the future is going to be very interesting. I'm really curious to see what this whole full self-driving robo-taxi thing that Tesla is, talking about. I'm really curious to see how that is going to pan out. And I think there is a lot of potential for full self-driving in these cars. I mean, time will tell, but honestly, there is a lot of potential here. And so that's just my kind of thoughts. I know I released an hour-long video of the full self-driving, and at the end I kind of discussed some of these points, but if you didn't watch the whole video, then at least maybe I can take a few of those pointers and just kind of give them to you right here and kind of show you what my thought process is currently with full self-driving. And right now my 30-day trial is up. I'm not using full self-driving anymore. I've noticed that after my 30 days that there was times where I just rather just drive the car myself or just utilize autopilot versus actually using full self-driving. I think full self-driving is really cool in specific scenarios, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how certain people use the car in those certain scenarios just to see how it benefits them. But overall, I think that it is really impressive. And I'm really curious to see what happens. So I think when the next big iteration comes out, maybe like 12.6 or 12.7 or something, maybe I'll re-up it again for another month and give it a shot and see how well it works. And we'll just kind of go from there. And right now with the pricing of full self-driving, I think it's finally in the right, price range, I believe. $100 a month is not terrible. And of course, the cool thing is you can select it for 1 month at a time if you just want to do 1 month, and then you just don't renew it the following month. And if you wanted to buy it outright for your vehicle at $8,000 is not really too bad. We haven't seen it as low as $8,000 since 2020. And so here it is now 4 years later, and it had a peak of $15,000 on a purchase of a new vehicle. It's now almost half of that again. I think that it could be a time to buy full self-driving if you have the money to do it, or if you don't have the money, or let's say you're leasing, or let's say you're not planning on keeping the car more than a couple years, then $100 a month doesn't seem all that bad. But once again, this is just my opinion on this particular situation that's going on right now. And I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible because once again, I'm not the type of person who releases a full self-driving video after every little iteration, every little dot something. I'm actually taking an 8-month span off from full self-driving and then giving it another shot here at 12.3.6. And I can see some major, major improvements in that. And so I'm really curious to see what the next 8 months or even 12 months is going to bring with full self-driving. But I'm also curious what you think as well. So make sure you post down in the comments what your experience is, whether it be consistently with full self-driving over the course of, the last year or 2 or 3 or whatever your experience is with full self-driving, or even if you just got the 30-day trial. What was your thoughts on it? Like, did you like it? Did you think that it was dangerous? Did you think that it was really good and confident? Just give me your overall impressions down in the comments below. Anyway, I'd like to thank you very much for watching this episode. Like I said, just to trim down my hour-long video of full self-driving a little bit to kind of go over my impressions of it. And yeah, I'm curious to see what happens next. Anyway, if you liked the video, make sure you give it the thumbs up, the like button down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for more Tesla content, as well as we will have plenty of content coming up in the near future. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all on the next episode. And remember, welcome to the future, and welcome to Tech Motoring. We'll see you soon.